Welcome to Safe, Efficient, Profitable, a Worker Safety Podcast, where we break down real problems from real situations and discuss realistic solutions. And here's your host, owner of Allen Safety LLC and CHMM, Joe Allen.
Good day. This is Joe Allen. I'm doing this podcast a little differently today. We're doing a sanitation episode. This one will be, on the YouTube and like Apple Podcasts like normal. But this one, if you go to YouTube, you can actually see me. We're trying something a little different. I thought we'd change it up. Okay, here we go. Sanitation safety. That's what everybody's talking about. They want to know what's going on, internal, external, pros and cons. We decided, you know what? We've been doing sanitation for years and years and years as a consultant on the worker safety side, not the food safety, but the worker safety. So we decided, why don't we do an episode about it and start talking about it? So we're going to do a series. Series is going to be about pros of bringing internal. That's today. The next one's going to be pros of bringing external. That's next week. And then the next few episodes will be the things you don't want to do. Like, why would you not bring it internal or external? And then some food safety things that go with it. Because for those of you who don't know us that well, we kind of came around on the safety side and we came up through the food industry. So because we did, we got to spend a lot of time working on sanitation. The plant that I worked at down in Texas, we had sanitation every night. I would go in and watch them do that process. I never really seen that kind of stuff before. So that was kind of different to me. But from a safety side, I'd always looked at the picture like, this is how you do safety, or this is how you do lockout tagout, or this is how you do a certain thing. I never thought about how it changed a little bit during the third shift, or the sanitation, or turnover, or the water use, or PPE. So I learned that working down there. And what's really great about it is that I got to see it from the safety manager side first. So then we became a consulting company, and then we said, all right, what am I going to do now? I did my training, I did my stuff, but I managed hazmat leaks. I managed chemicals. Guess what? Sanitation's got a lot of chemicals. So then I was like, okay, if we're going to be doing chemicals, where's the risk of chemicals I don't think about? Sanitation. So then I started, let's start spending more time on that. And then a few years later, we started performing more processes. We go in to help locations improve. We're called a process improvement company. As we go help them improve, sanitation, chemicals, storage, shipping, all of those things became a bigger part of my life and our company's career. And that's where we're at today. So we're going to start with, for those of you that are watching, you can see this. For those who are listening, you can just listen. I'll try to break it down because I've never done this before. Here we go. So the first one is clothing. I'm personally wearing a polo shirt that says sanitation safety. Why? Because I'm going to look professional, look a certain way when I go to the floor. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have a particular pair of PPE, a particular pants. Now, what do those pants look like? These are pants that have if you see on the video here, they have sanitation marks on the bottom of them. I wouldn't trust anybody to tell me about sanitation if they didn't have a bunch of bleach on their pants somewhere to let them know they've been walking the floors. We wear boots, we wear pants and clothing that keeps us, so if there's any kind of splatter, any kind of chemical while we're looking on the third shift, we're protected. So that's something that is not a pro or a con. It's just an idea you don't think about, is the PPE. You've got a PPE for managers and you have a PPE for the people actually doing the sanitation. So that's the first thing you want to think of. Now, the next thing you want to do is you're saying, okay, whether we do it internal, external, what's something I want to do? And you think about, do I even want to manage this process? So I do have my phone today. I'm going to reference it today. But a couple of things is, when you are looking at bringing it internal, you're going to ask different questions. If you have questions, we have on our website, we have some articles about sanitation. We've worked on locations about it. So if you want to, the next few weeks, reach out and we'll talk from there on different, if you have a question, just send it to me on email or text, whatever you're going to do. All right, so let's go back to bringing it internal. I've decided now that I want to bring it internal. I say that's the greatest idea ever. Okay, if it's the greatest idea ever, what do you got to do? Well, let's go through the pros first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and I'm going to talk about bringing it internal. Now, we were at an amusement park a few weeks ago with our daughter. My daughter wanted to ride a roller coaster. I really like roller coasters. Jen likes them. So we're going to ride a roller coaster. My daughter thought it was the greatest experience ever until it started. And then after it started, Now we're committed. There's no way to stop the roller coaster till you're done. And we talked about it, and she was excited, not excited. She was almost like, it was almost kind of crazy. Well, guess what? If you've never really done sanitation or you've never really managed sanitation, it's just not adding one thing to your plate of work that you're doing. You're adding multiple control variables at one time. So to do that, multiple control variables, it is kind of like a roller coaster when you first start if you haven't done it before. First few times I started doing it, I was like, well, this is more than I expected and more I thought, but you're already doing it and you're already walking the floors. And you know what? Tomorrow night, they're doing it again. So what you want to do, the first thing you think of is what is the scope of work it's going to bring in and how crazy is that scope of work going to be and or not crazy that basically what you can handle. I can handle a lot of different things now after 20 something years of doing this as a consultant than I could handle 20 years ago. I didn't even know some of the things that existed through the world of sanitation or food plants or equipment or any kind of industry until I've grown through these processes. So part of it is just the knowledge base you have and how you want to manage that. And if you decide, yep, I want to take that on, okay, that's the first step. Now, the next one is you're going to look at, what am I looking at for labor? Can I get labor? A pro with bringing it in is maybe I've got a lot of people I can hire around the area. So I can do that because it's a little bit different skill set hiring for third shift than it is first or second shift. Also, when you look at hiring people, you've got to talk to them about, okay, I want to bring an internal, but you're working 5 days a week or 6 days a week, or maybe only 2 or 3 based on a continuous run. Those are things you have to tell them and get open mind about how you're going to manage that system and explain to them what the real scope is going to be. Myself, I like the idea of only working a few days a week if I can, but in reality, I work a lot of days just because that's how the nature of our business goes. But you're going to have people that say, I really only want to work 12-hour shifts because I did that for years in the military. I like that. You worked a few 12s, you got off a few days. Some people like that idea. I work nights for years. Some people like nights, some people don't. You're looking for that person and that idea of, hey, you want to work sanitation 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, whatever your system is going to be. Explain that to them so they can help manage it out. As you do this now, you decide to bring it internal. Sometimes it's easier with 5 people. So if you've got only 5 you need for sanitation because you're basically having one manager managing 5, kind of like a maintenance crew, well, then that's kind of easy. You can say, all right, maybe I bring in 5, I get them trained, I get them speed, and I'm good to go. When you start talking about 120 or 130, now you're like, is this really the scope I want to manage? So maybe you tier step it if you decide to bring internal. You bring in 20 people and start only cleaning, production floor 1, or maybe shop 1 or shipping 1, and you do it that way, where you go clean a particular area and see if you even like it, almost like a test run, and see if you do it. I flipped houses for years, and I will tell you, the first house I flipped, I didn't do near as well as I did later on all the others, because you just got to have that experience. So I did one small house, learned how to do it, and then grew from there. So that's kind of, you can do that too. You can bring an internal and say, okay, I'm going to do one room, start with that, see how I manage it, and then expand to another room. So that's one of the ways you want to manage it if you decide to bring internal and a pro for that. Another thing you're looking at is you can control some of your cost variables. So one of those cost variables is maybe so this is number 2 now. So maybe I'm saying, okay, I don't like that this thing is $10, but I think I can do it for 7. Okay, you think you can do it 7 and you can manage the cost? That may be an advantage bringing it in. There are certain processes that we bring in internal as Allen Safety, and there's certain processes we contract out. So because we've already made decisions as a company, there's certain things I'm great at, I'm not. I'm not good at doing pretty much anything that has to do with the house when it comes to plumbing or electrical. So I'm going to contract that out. But the pro is I can do other stuff, so I do those actions. So you got to break down what you're going to do. I'm good at managing a hose, so does that make me a sanitation person? I don't know, but I know that I'm good at that. So that's the skill set I want to work on. So as you decide to bring in sanitation and you say, yes, we can manage it, and yes, this can be a controlled cost, and we can manage it a little better and do it cheaper, whatever that question or variable is, just look at the whole puzzle before you do it, not just one part. But there is a pro that if you think, I think you can do it cheaper, well, then that's an opportunity for you. Another thing we look at is that you do get to pick the manager, and you do get to pick how you're going to do it. There are companies that like that idea. There's companies and general managers that like knowing that Joe is the person who's doing that particular task, and they can train Joe and they can get him up to speed, and they can say, yes, you have a problem, come to me and I can help you work through it. It's kind of a different connection. It's kind of like when we hire somebody, I do all the interviews because you end up working for me. I'm kind of like the GM. So there's a different connection there you're going to have than you would with just saying, okay, we're going to hire a control variable, and that control variable come in maybe a third party. Some people don't like that. Some people like having the people they know well. They like hiring themselves, they manage them. There's your pro then. That's number 3. If you decide you want to have that management relationship and work with them, then that's a pro. Bring them in, work with them, train them the way you want, kind of look at, our company has a vision, make it the way you want your vision to be. And that's how you can manage sanitation that way. So you could have a third pro and bring it in and help manage it to make it the way you want to make it. Another pro we're looking at you have internal systems, maybe as a safety manager or maybe HR or others, and you decide I'm going to bring sanitation in. Well, that internal safety manager, you may want to have a safety manager on third shift, not only just for sanitation, but because you're already doing maintenance work or you're already doing a continuous run. So you decide, let's bring in somebody who's going to be doing safety on seconds or thirds and have them help. It gives them a little more experience. It gives it a little more of a shift coverage. And if you already got people there, it may be easier to say, we already have safety people here. You know what? We'll add sanitation because it's just another piece of the puzzle. And maybe it's a shift that gets done at 1 a.m. and you want to pay your people till 4. Well, what do? Well, let's do sanitation for 3 hours, and we have those people stay over for 3 hours. That's maybe a manager, it's maybe safety, maybe an hourly employee, or that is a better fit for your business on how you manage that structure. All right, another one we look at is that sometimes we have sanitation at night, but there's also sometimes we do sanitation during the day. Maybe we're doing a crossover product. Maybe we're doing a process. We say, let's clean these lines because we've got something weird with the line, so let's clean it and start the new product. Or maybe we say, nope, we're going to clean it for this product. We're going to change this entire product and make this happen. If you are already doing tasks like that during the day, it may be easy for you to say, let's just add the same process on second or third. You can be a plant that runs 3 8-hour shifts, and that happens all night. Or maybe 3 8-hour shifts where department 1 runs 2 shifts, so they start cleaning at night, and then department 2 runs 2 shifts, but they clean at a different time. So it could just be a management tool where you're just like, we're already cleaning, we already have the gear, we already have the equipment. What more is it to add just 2 or 3 hours to the night and have our people do the cleaning? And there you go. You can do it that way. So that's another pro for that. And then another pro here, and I don't know really how many I'm counting, but it's kind of like top 6 we're talking about here. But the other thing we look at is there is also a part about the community. There's a part where some people say, we work in this town, we want to support local, so we hire everybody local and we do everything we can local, whether we build an apartment complex or whether we help with community events. That one of the things we do is we hire 24 hours, we hire all the people ourselves, we help the community by doing that. I'm not saying that's a pro or con for internal or external. It's just a concept that some management teams like, that they say we provide a service for the community, and part of that community is we hire internal and we have more jobs and we present that as our company business model. Now, as you do those pros, as you bring the sanitation in, you will find opportunities, and that's why there's an episode about opportunities basically later. But the pros got to be, with the end of the day, you've got to step back, think for a second and say, how and why am I doing this process? How am I going to manage it is one set of thoughts. Why am I doing this process is another set of thoughts. And the last set of thoughts is, how do I continuously manage this process? If I was brought into your location and you tell me you have internal sanitation, those are the things I'm thinking about. How are you really doing this during shift change and turnover and all these other things? And then I'm looking at, what is the real reason you're doing it? Because maybe it's whatever reason it is, makes sense or doesn't make sense. I'm going to challenge that to make sure we're thinking on the right pattern. And then the other part I'm looking at is it really beneficial to the business? Like I said, is your structure and is your business model able to adapt and manage that system? And if it can't adapt and manage that system, then maybe you keep it third party for a while. Or maybe you say, I'm going to work on a plan and I'll work on it in a year. But all I want you to know is, it's not the same as just adding a shift. It is a different variable. Sanitation has about 6 or 7 parts of safety that change through the night. So maybe you have a dry pickup, or maybe you have hose handling or breaking down equipment, or work on the maintenance to setting it up, and then you have pre-op, and or maybe you have some chemical stuff going at night, or maybe chemical is delivered during the day. It's a completely different puzzle. So even if you decide to bring the sanitation internal, what I always encourage my locations to do is set the business model and the structure like they're a contractor or like they're a third party. I'm not saying that makes sense to everybody on here. What I'm saying is when I look at a document, I look at a lockout procedure, and I say, okay, lockout procedure 1 says we're going to lock it out this way during day shift. That's great. Now, third shift, is there anything different? Well, if there's anything different, then I need to make a note of that. My PPE is going to be different than day shift than night shift. My hot water and the amount of water I use, even what time of day I'm using the water, and the amount of hot water I have are variables I didn't think of during the day because I don't use as much hot water. Now I've got 5 people that call in tonight and they can't come into work and it's third shift, but there's really no one else I can call to bring in. So you've got to think about these opportunities as you go through. What am I going to do when I bring it internal? And you got to start breaking down what are all the control variables that will make me successful and the ones that I have, like, I don't get a plan for that. So that's what I do. I treat that third shift or that sanitation sector in my mind like a different variable because I can look at the picture better. I can look at the lockout. I can look at the PPE. I can look at the chemical handling. And it keeps my mind breaking it down that it's not a sanitation tote. It's a tote and chemical storage, but maybe I have different chemicals I need to separate than others. Or maybe that tote has to be transported different than other. Or maybe I have bulk storage where all the other totes I have are totes, and this particular chemical for sanitation is going to be bulk storage. So that's a different process, a trailer coming on property and hooking up and filling up the chemicals. So I need to I detach myself from the normal system, and I put this internal sanitation in its own kind of process or package, and I manage it that way because in my mind, it's easier to manage that way. So whether you do internal or external, I still treat it like it's a different control variable because it's just easier from a safety management tool to manage as we go. All right, it says I'm at 16 minutes. I appreciate you listening to me on this one. I've got another one each week. I don't know how many of these we're going to do. We're going to try to do a few, but I do appreciate you listening to us. I hope there's some good ideas and things that help you out to make you go, there we go. And if you decide to bring sanitation internal, well, that's great. Have your people, have your training, get your management systems, and be amazing at what you do. Thank you, and talk to you next time.
Thank you for listening to Safe, Efficient, Profitable, a Worker Safety Podcast. If you like what you heard here, please take a moment to write us a quick review, like, subscribe, and share our podcast so that others can find us. For questions or to request topics that you'd like to hear on our next show, please visit us at www.allen-safety.com. Thank you.